Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. What an honour and a privilege to stand here this morning. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Honourable Tama Pōtaka for hosting this event, and of course to World Vision who are managing all of the arrangements. Thank you. In the broadest possible sense, a humanitarian is someone who seeks to improve people's lives, someone who seeks to promote human welfare. Whether you are a cabinet minister or an MP, whether you work for MFAT or for an NGO, none of us would be here this morning if we didn't want to improve people's lives. We are, in one sense or another, therefore, all humanitarians, and we should be proud of that. However, today, 19th of August, we especially recognise those who deliberately dedicate their lives to humanitarian work around the globe. These are people who are guided by the humanitarian principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. People who regularly put the needs and safety of others before their own. The modern humanitarian movement is often traced back to Henry Dunant, who was so shaken and unsettled by the suffering he saw of wounded soldiers that he wrote a publication which has sparked what is now known as the humanitarian movement. This led to the founding of the International Committee of the Red Cross in 1863, and in turn to the first Geneva Convention in 1864, which laid the foundation for international humanitarian law. But while humanitarianism is a relatively modern term, the impulse to help those in need is as old as humanity itself. Across cultures and centuries, philosophical and religious traditions have emphasized compassion, charity, and care for the vulnerable. Buddhism, for example, speaks of compassion and non-harming. Hinduism's teaching on karma and selfless service strongly encourages humanitarian action. The Quran calls for acts of mercy and generosity, and Jewish tradition emphasizes care for the vulnerable, the stranger, and the preservation of life. And for Christians, Jesus told his followers to show compassion, to care for the vulnerable, and to seek the well-being of others. So the idea of promoting human welfare is an ancient and cross-cultural tradition that continues to evolve, shaped by history, crises, and our growing understanding of human rights. Today, on World Humanitarian Day, we honour those who step into crises to help others, and we stand with millions of others whose lives hang in the balance due to conflict or natural disaster. This year's message is clear. The humanitarian system is stretched to its limits, underfunded, overwhelmed, and under attack. For example, this year, in 2025, over 305 million people across 72 countries need humanitarian assistance, requiring $4 billion of funding. Nowhere near that amount is going to be available. Around 400 million children, that is 1 in 5 globally, either live in or are fleeing conflict zones. 4 out of 5 civilian deaths in conflicts happen in countries where there are currently humanitarian appeals. Last year, 2024, over 360 humanitarian workers were killed, making it the deadliest record on record, the deadliest year on record. 200 of those were in Gaza. And in the first 5 months of this year, 128 humanitarians have been killed in 17 countries. The most dangerous places? Gaza, the West Bank, and Sudan. And 95% of those humanitarian workers who have been killed were local responders. Where bombs fall and disasters strike, humanitarian workers hold the line, keeping people alive, often at great personal risk. Too often the world looks away even when these attacks violate agreed international law. Those responsible are rarely held to account. This silence cannot and must not continue. We are not at the crossroads, we are at the very edge. Needs are rising, funding is falling. Attacks on humanitarian workers are breaking records. And arguably nowhere is this clearer than in Gaza. For many years, Anglican Missions has supported the Ahli Anglican Hospital. It has a long history and treats everyone impartially. In launching our most recent appeal, we've been joined by other agencies, including Tear Fund, who are here this morning. Since October 2023, the hospital has been deliberately bombed 8 times. 3 weeks ago, one of its most senior and experienced surgeons was murdered on his way home. On Sunday, 2 days ago, the hospital was bombed the 9th time, and 7 people were killed. Somehow, miraculously, and through the incredible courage of its staff, this hospital remains open, serving the sick, the injured, and the dying, providing a glimmer of hope in the rubble of despair. There can be no rationale or excuse, even in the complexity of war, for what we are witnessing. And we acknowledge the funding support by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade to UN agencies to continue to respond. We also acknowledge and thank Minister Peters, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade, for the advocacy that he's doing. Aotearoa New Zealand can play a part in a peaceful outcome. As a nation, we have a proud history of standing up when it counts. So let's be on the right side of history. The crises in Gaza and the Ukraine, like the slow-moving food crises in the Sudan, in Ethiopia and Somalia, have pushed this fragile world that we all call home to a tipping point. Images of starving children and the ever-growing list of make it impossible to merely remain onlookers. The need is before us, and we must continue to take a stand. We need to continue to take a stand with other humanitarians and double down on our support for the most vulnerable. If you are able, would you like to please stand with me now? Let us take a moment to remember the humanitarians who have lost their lives this year. We acknowledge the sacrifice they have made. We applaud the humanity they have shown. We respect the love that they have given and the risks they have taken on our behalf. I pray that those suffering will find comfort and healing, that all humanitarians will be blessed and protected. Each day at noon, people of all faiths and none share these words. Today they will be spoken at gatherings like this around the world. Would you please join with me in saying this together? Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts and our world. Whakawe tai ki a koe. Thank you for listening.